What if your desire for a garden, a slower pace, homemade breads, herbal remedies, and a house filled with life isn't a trend at all? What if it's an echo? Welcome to Womenfolk Revival, where we are deeply rooted and wildly intentional. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Meara. Today we're talking about ancestry, not just where our families have come from, but how they lived, the skills they had, and the things that they valued, and whether some of those old ways might still be calling us today. Because the more Maggie and I started digging into our ancestry, the more we realized that this wasn't really about the names and the dates or our family trees, but it was about trying to understand the people who came before us. And for me, it ended up becoming a lot more personal than I had expected.
Mine, I never did one of the Ancestry kits, but both of my parents did. So
Hmm.
with some research and with some help from AI, yes, I do occasionally use AI. I was able to figure out what in general, you know, kind of makes me up. Um,
Yeah,
and my parents, it's very odd. My parents both had exactly 46% Northwestern Germany or
oh,
ancient
wow.
Germanic. Some kind of both had 46%. Isn't that
That's
nuts?
crazy. That's crazy.
So that is mostly what I am.
And you have your parents to, kind of lean on their lineage with the 23andMe, but you also have them that can tell you, firsthand what it was like for them growing up and maybe your grandparents growing up. But for me, I was adopted
Mhm.
at 6 months. I had an amazing family. I was very well taken care of. But for most of my life, I always thought that if I ever reached out to my biological family, I would want to do it for medical history because if I were to ever have kids, and I wanted to thank my biological mother, because that was like the most selfless thing that anybody could ever do is giving up a child. But
Mhm.
about 3 years ago, when you and I reconnected, I wanted to kind of start digging deeper into my ancestry because these were some of the things that we were starting to get into. And I wanted to find what that missing piece was. Me
Oh.
getting emotional, home, where I came from. You
Mhm.
know, um, I don't know why I'm always so emotional, but it's like the missing piece I found, It was a part of my identity that I didn't even realize that I had been carrying around unanswered because growing up it really didn't matter to me. I was so loved that I really just didn't care. So when we
Mhm.
started digging into our ancestry, I really didn't know what to expect. I am like the most unique person, I think, because I found out that on my mom's side, it's mostly Austrian, South German, and Slovenian. And on my dad's side, it's mostly Nigerian and West Africa, which was fascinating to me because it's like Ghana and Congolese, I think I'm saying that right, were some of the other parts of Africa. So for the first time, I had felt like I had actually had a piece of my identity that I could connect to, the actual places and the history that had existed, before me, and that made
Mhm.
me really curious.
And I do feel, I know here in America it's always such a big deal for people to be like, "Oh, well, I'm German, I'm Irish,"
Yeah.
and that doesn't really affect me at all. And I don't know if
Mhm.
you feel like it affects you now knowing, but I do it is neat to listen to the calling that I have inside of me and
Mhm.
how it reflects how people from that part of the world, 200-300 years ago lived. And
Mhm.
that to me is totally fascinating.
It really called out to me because like I said, growing up, my mom named me Meara, which is Irish Gaelic, and she's Irish and I'm not Irish. So I just kind of always didn't really have much to go on. And then I would always like support my husband, oh, the Pakistani flag, oh, the Bahraini flag. And I would always hang these up in my garage. And he's like, but you're not. you're not Pakistani. I want my Pakistani flag. Can I have it? And it made me almost feel kind of hurt in a way, like I still didn't belong. And this was just last year. But ever since I dug deeper into this, I'm like, oh, I finally have that, that belonging where people, I guess most people feel when they're not adopted that they already have that connection with their family. So they don't have
Mhm.
that yearning to like be a part of anything because they're already a part of something that they had come from. But I didn't have that. Now I have my own kids. So I see that connection they have with the Pakistani side with their father, but I just I don't feel like I had anything to offer them, but that's because I had that missing piece for me. So when I found that out, I really just took a hold of that and I'm like clinging to it now, not because oh, I'm Nigerian or Slovenian, but because I understand like you just said now how these people lived. On my mom's side, my biological mom's side, I kept reading about mountain villages, farming communities, people living by the seasons like we're doing,
Mhm.
preserving food, foraging, and preparing for winters. They couldn't just
Yep.
run to the store and get something. They had to know how to provide it for themselves, and they had to pay attention to the land. So as
Yep.
I was reading about that, I kept thinking, this is exactly what I've been drawn to and what we are drawn to. Learning how to grow foods, herbs, animals, and learning how to do things for ourselves instead of depending on a system for everything.
Mhm. And what each different area, um, and like when I say tribe of people or group of people, they all had certain things that made them unique.
Hmm.
But in a general sense, it all it it's all the same, and it's living
Hmm.
with the seasons. It's
Hmm.
knowing the land and living with the land. And, you know, and that is just basic the most basic
Basic thing we could
thing,
be doing.
you know?
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
all stems back to this feeling resonating in us that we want to live in our creator's world
Hmm.
and be a part of it like he intended. And that's what people have been
Right.
doing for forever until,
Centuries. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I I agree 100% that that's how it should be. I was also reading my father's side, and what stood out to me about that, like you had just mentioned, is also is the community. Um, People carried the knowledge, the elders, the aunts, the grandmas, and it wasn't just a community like it is today, where okay, I'm a mom, and of course I have a family, but I'm raising my family by myself. And while my mom is there, and while I have some friends there, minus you because you're always you're my community, you're my sister. But there's no village. And the thing that
Mm-mm.
fascinated me about that Nigerian culture and that West African culture was the community that they had. You weren't raising your child alone. That child did not belong to you. It belonged to their grandmother. It belonged to the elders in the community. It belonged to the aunts. It belonged to everybody. And that's how that was passed down. And that's how you learn from the people around, You just not family just not being a mom and dad and the kids trying to survive on their own like we are today. And there was layers of community there. And I think that we're honestly all craving that right now. We always talk about building that village.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because
Yeah.
and even if you do live by, modern standards and the way, society is moving, it's still
Mhm.
completely overwhelming to be a parent.
It is.
And to not have that village is just detrimental to women, especially.
Mhm. And the
I mean,
expectations that
it impacts
it impacts.
everybody and the kids,
Mhm.
but women are always going to be the ones who carry the full weight of that.
Mhm. Mhm. What is that called? The matriarch of the family is what we call grandmothers. Um, so I'm not
You
sure
know,
if that's like a thing,
it's
but
it's interesting in saying that, and I'm I'm a little, I guess, I'm just gonna say it.
say it.
It almost feels like a total attack on women to break apart the village and to create this modern societal way of living. Here women think
Mhm.
they're getting more opportunities, and oh, it's great. We have more freedom, and do
Mhm.
we? Because I didn't feel free in society, and I didn't feel safe, and I didn't feel like I was doing, the best that I could do and doing what I was meant to do. I, in my home with the protection of my husband and, him going out and, being the breadwinner and me raising my children at home and creating this beautiful life that they're trying to create here, and
Mhm.
being a part of the land and really immersing myself in all of that is where I shine, and that is where I feel like I can really truly do everything that I was meant to do, and I
Meant
am
to do.
free. I am
Yeah.
totally free.
Yeah. Now, I feel like some of these women who might be listening in might think, but that's kind of like a recluse way of living. Don't you want to be around everyone in society? And I think
Oh,
from
I would love
what
to have a
I've
village just of
that's what
like-minded
I'm
people.
getting at. Yes, that's exactly what I'm getting at. There's just so few people out there anymore now who can relate. And even if they don't relate, like I'm not on the same level as you, somebody else is not on the same level as me. We all are at different levels, but we all have that relatability and we all
Yes.
have that same thought process of how to live. And so you don't have to be in a clique to be, a part of a part of the community. That's not what it is. It's just all about living off of the land how the creator had intended, so on and so forth. But how does that one person find that community? Well, first and foremost here for sure. But it was hard before we ever reconnected. I let go of a lot of friends, not in a sense of I didn't want to talk to them anymore, but I got rid of a lot of friends with hanging out with them and stuff because it just
Mhm.
wasn't the way that I was living.
Yep. Yeah,
So you were frozen for a second.
so were you. Um, I for
Keep talking.
long huh? Am I still frozen?
I said, keep talking.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
keep talking. Oh, you're back. Hi.
Um, yeah, I for a long time, I really strive to have friends because that's what you do. And it just wasn't
Mhm.
fulfilling to me. It wasn't, these were not real connections. And,
Mhm.
I decided that being alone would be better. And
Mhm.
so, I did the whole lone wolf thing for a long time. And, then I had my husband, and he was my best friend, and he was who I had. And I
Mhm.
also had my parents. I would consider my parents at this age, friends of mine. Um, Even though they're still my parents. Um, but I just didn't have any female friends because there were not women that I knew that felt the way I did and understood, and not even had to live the same way as me, but they didn't understand me. And
You
a
didn't
lot
fit their
of them,
criteria.
yeah,
For
yeah,
how
it was,
society is supposed to be.
and sometimes I almost felt like just like a walking insult because of the way, everyone would respond to
I
me.
love it. I
So,
love it.
but yeah, and then we reconnected, and I have a couple other female friends that are,
Mhm.
maybe not fully into the life as we are, but there
Mhm.
are commonalities, and
Yeah.
there is respect for each other. And even if we don't fully understand certain
Mhm.
things, we're open to it, and we allow each other to be who we are,
Mhm.
because our creator created us all differently, and that's a beautiful
Mhm.
thing.
It is. That's how you learn and grow and gain more knowledge from each other. And like that, I don't think it was till after we reconnected did I realize the value of a friendship with a woman who is true to themselves and true to other people, are able to take what they're saying at face value to someone else. If you tell me something that you don't like, I'm going to listen to what you have to say, and I'm going to reconstruct or do whatever I need to do to fix that, especially if it's, I mean, but we've never had an issue. We just disagree on a lot of things because we're two different
And
people, which is to
and
be
we've talked about
expected.
some really, like, touchy topics
Outlandish
too,
things.
yeah.
My goodness, we do. But
Yeah.
then I started to realize what that means, the value that you bring to the table as a friend, and
And you
how I
also.
could find that in other people. And that's when I just kind of started. Now I have like two other really close friends. The other one is uh my granddaughter's her grandmother. We're two total separate people. She is all about society, all about eating out, doesn't want to cook, doesn't want to learn how to cook. But it's all about our granddaughter, and it's all about being women and being supportive and being there for one another. So that's how we relate. And I really value our friendship as well. So, as I get older, I realize, yeah, I start to see how it shapes me as a person and if it brings value to my life. Because just like we live in seasons, people come and go like seasons. And that's okay. You don't have to be friends with somebody forever if it's not a good match. I
Right.
promise.
There will be
So
others, and you will find your
there will
people that
be
will
others.
be there every season for the rest of your
You
life.
sure will. Like Maggie and I. We're
Yeah.
waiting for you all. Come forward. No. um,
God.
step up. Then I started reading about traditional foods and plant knowledge and just like kind of everyday ways that people had cared for their families. And I thought it was hilarious. Well, I didn't think it was hilarious, but I did kind of chuckle because I kept seeing things that felt strangely familiar, like
Mhm.
garlic, ginger, onions, herbs, teas, food that is just being used for other than, eating. And you know me, I put garlic in everything, like over the
Mhm.
top garlic. It'll call for like 2 cloves, and here I'm 6 cloves deep, right? We made the onion and honey cough syrup just because it felt so natural, like that was something that I was supposed to do. And then we're always talking about herbs and teas, and I never even grew up with these traditions at all.
Mhm.
I didn't have anyone to pass these things down to me.
Yeah.
Nobody taught me how to make garlic honey. Nobody taught me about herbs or um, interested in growing food or preserving food. These are things I just kind of fell into on my own and started to really like. But there's always just something about them that felt really familiar to me. Like I was reconnecting with something that I couldn't quite explain. So when I started learning about the cultures that my ancestors had came from and I saw some of the same things showing up over and over, I found that fascinating. Because then that just proves to you all that it's not just oh, well, that's normal because your family did it and your family did it. No, I didn't have that. I was adopted.
Mhm.
So there's your proof.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a deeper connection and a
Mhm.
innate calling that is definitely carried on. And I thought was very interesting. And I know, people back in the day, they had multi-purpose ideas and views for things, but especially within Germanic and Celtic households, plants were so many things. They were food, medicine, dyes, spiritual symbolism and protection. And I am all about, those. I like my powerhouse plants, these things that the ones that can just do everything. And what can I do with this? Or, I read about something and I'm like, oh, what do I do with the leftover parts? I'm
Mhm.
like, that has to serve
Mhm.
a purpose, and that's so strong in me. And I just think it's funny that, two of the bigger chunks of me, that was a big part of the way they lived and how they viewed plants. So it's very
Well, you know what
cool.
I find you know what I find just as fascinating is you were sitting here saying that, you have your family, how you've grown up and stuff. But you're also telling me before we came on the podcast how your family was all thinking that they were Irish, and you were doing all these American Irish traditions and stuff. So it is that calling back for you, because aside from all that, you were already doing the things that you just found that the part of you which is not Irish was already doing. So it
Yeah.
is that connection. It is that deep
Mhm.
spiritual connection.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do have on my dad's side. They thought they were mostly Irish, even though they carried a German name. The German Irish. And
That's funny.
come to find out, no, you're mostly German and English, and there's a little bit of Irish on both sides, and but that whole region, Ireland and Scotland and Wales and all of that kind of combined. So
Yeah, my adopted mom is Irish, I think. Yeah, they're Irish, or yeah, Ireland. I got it confused. Yeah, and she's really interested in that. And my grandma's family is Germany, my adopted family. So I grew up learning about, and then my name is Irish Gaelic, like of all things. So it's pretty fascinating hearing about other people's stories, but I never knew what my ancestry journey was about.
mhm.
And finally I can see all the pieces of where I come from. Um, but the more we talk about it, the more we realize that this is what we keep coming back to, and that's Womenfolk Revival. I believe that that's what has kind of shaped this unknowingly, this
Yeah.
path for us.
And that is, that for me that's the part of embracing, where I I come from, not what each individual person chose to do with their life or how they fit
Uh-huh.
into society in whatever way, but how, those older ancestors, how they lived, and
Uh-huh.
seeing that come through so deep in me, and then and you, and a lot of women are finally kind of coming around to that, but including your ancestry in that way, it just makes it stronger and more meaningful
Uh-huh.
in a way that, like, genetics never really mattered to me, but now they do.
Yeah. Maybe that's why Womenfolk Revival means so much to us. Like you said, we're not trying to recreate the past, pretending everything old was better. We're just wanting to know what was valuable, what worked for them, what brought people together, and what is worth us carrying forward and passing down to our children.
Mhm.
So,
'Cause society is definitely not it.
not it. But unfortunately, we're here in this society. So, and wherever else you're living in that society, I mean, to me, it's all the same, just different places with different ways of doing things. But,
Yeah.
um, so before we go, I want to leave you with this. Look at the things you keep being drawn back to, the skills you want to learn, the food you want to make, the way you want your home to feel, the kind of community that you keep wishing you had. Don't ignore these things. Start with one of them. Learn it, practice it, and pass it down, because maybe some human yuck. Because maybe some human needs never really change. And maybe that's why so many of us keep finding our way back to food, family, community, practical skills, and living closer to the land. Maybe those things aren't just trends. Maybe they're echoes, and maybe some echoes are worth listening to.
Mhm. Yes.
And next week, we're getting into fat revolution. We're talking traditional fats, beef tallow, butter, ghee, and why these fats were used for generations and why they became so controversial, and how to source quality options locally here in Ohio. If you know another woman who would connect with this, send it to her. That's how we keep these conversations going and how we keep building this community. Follow Womenfolk Revival wherever you're listening so you don't miss the next episode. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or your own ancestry story, come find us on Facebook and join the conversation. We're building this village one conversation at a time. Until then,
Stay rooted and stay wild.
stay wild.